Hey guys, so imagine a peaceful desert landscape with nothing but sand and boundless expanses. Now add in enormous columns of black smoke, suffocating haze, and tongues of flames rising to the sky. It's hell on earth. An oil apocalypse. Hell in the desert. Over 30 years ago, during the Gulf War, the Iraqi army under Saddam Hussein's orders used oil as a weapon of mass destruction, leading to one of the most significant environmental disasters in modern history. In today's video, I'm going to show you the horror and devastation brought by the oil apocalypse, as well as share the story of how firefighters fought the flames and the incredible equipment they used to save nature from this hell on earth. So, Kuwait was one of Iraq's main financial sponsors during the Iran-Iraq War of 1980 to 1988. Iraq didn't want to repay the debt to Kuwait, which was about $14 billion, and it couldn't actually afford to do so. By the end of the war, Iraq's external debt exceeded $60 billion, and its gold and currency reserves had decreased by 13 times to $2 billion. The price of a barrel of Arab light crude oil dropped from around $36 in 1980 to $13.40 in 1988. Saddam decided on a rather radical solution to this problem. He accused Kuwait of producing more oil than was agreed upon and stealing it from Iraqi wells. On August 2, 1990, Iraqi forces invaded Kuwait and took control of the country in just 2 days. On August 8th, Kuwait was annexed. After the occupation and annexation of Kuwait, the international community took several measures to address the situation peacefully. Negotiations, UN resolutions, joint statements by the US and the USSR presidents, trade and financial embargoes, and an arms embargo. However, none of these measures achieved the desired result. Then, on January 19, 1991, the largest ecological disaster of that time occurred. President Saddam Hussein ordered crude oil to be pumped out of the Sea Island terminal in Kuwait and 7 large oil tankers, and then be dumped into the sea. Preliminary estimates indicated that 816,000 tons of oil were spilled into the sea. Additionally, 732 oil wells were set on fire in Kuwait. In the following months, as part of Operation Desert Shield, multinational forces were deployed to the Persian Gulf region to protect Saudi Arabia and Gulf countries from the possible continuation of Iraqi aggression. On November 29, 1990, the UN Security Council adopted a resolution allowing all available measures to be taken against Iraq in accordance with the UN Charter. After an extended aerial campaign and several days of ground operations, multinational forces achieved a decisive victory. Iraq was forced to liberate Kuwait and recognize all UN Security Council resolutions regarding the conflict. It took almost a year to extinguish the raging fires, with a total cost of about $2 billion. Specialists from 16 countries fought the fires. What ecologists witnessed there exceeded all of their worst expectations. The concentration of smog in the air exceeded all permissible norms by 30 times. Around 3 million barrels of oil per day were burning in the torches, which was approximately 5% of the world's daily consumption. Black clouds rose up to 3 kilometers high and spread far beyond Kuwait. Black rains, containing a toxic mixture of sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, nitric acid, and hydrocarbons, fell over Kuwait and Iraq for a whole year, as well as over Saudi Arabia and Iran. Even in Kashmir, located 2,000 kilometers away from Kuwait, black snow fell. Carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere for the first week of the fires were approximately equal to the annual emissions of the British Isles. Some of the oil burned and some didn't. 1 million tons of oil spilled into the sea and the desert. Oil lakes formed in the desert, while beaches and the sea were contaminated. The high temperatures caused a solid crust somewhat similar to asphalt to form in many places on the ground. The animal and plant life of the desert suffered greatly. In the sea, millions of tons of oil caused the suffocation of fish, crabs, and mollusks. From February to October 1991, the average temperature in Kuwait and northern Saudi Arabia dropped by 10 degrees Celsius as compared to previous years. A phenomenon similar to a nuclear winter had begun. At a distance of 250 kilometers to the south and southwest of the fire zone, temperatures were 5 to 8 degrees Celsius below normal. At a distance of 750 kilometers and further, temperatures were 1 to 2 degrees Celsius below normal. According to experts' estimates, the existing oil reserves would allow the fires at former oil extraction sites to continue for over 40 years. This complex situation required an urgent solution so as to avoid catastrophic consequences for the environment and to restore the oil fields. This unusual problem required extraordinary measures, which were soon taken. Several ideas were proposed, including using powerful fire hoses to knock down the flames before conducting other operations, extinguishing fires with explosions, and more. At the same time, the Hungarian company MB Drilling proposed an interesting solution that had already been used in practice. Firefighting tanks and gas-based fire suppression have been used in various countries for quite some time. Firefighting tanks are specialized vehicles mounted on tank chassis. Gas-based fire suppression involves delivering a mixture of air or another gas and water to the fire site, cutting off the oxygen supply to the oil, and thus extinguishing the fire. The flow parameters of the mixture should be determined based on the complexity of the fire. The joint application of both ideas, namely building a firefighting tank with a gas-based suppression system, was of great interest. By the end of 1991, MB Drilling didn't only develop the new project, but also built the proposed equipment and sent it to Kuwait. Soon, the new gas-based fire suppression equipment was tested in practice and fully approved. The proposed project was named Big Wind. True to its name, the firefighting tank was equipped with 2 jet engines that were supposed to disperse the gas-based mixture with the required pressure and velocity. The chassis of the medium tank T-34 served as the basis for the vehicle, and it borrowed the jet engines from the MiG-21 fighter. Both types of equipment were already available in Hungary, which somewhat simplified the construction process of the self-propelled gas-based suppression unit. For obvious reasons, when the base tank was converted into a heavy firefighting machine, it lost its turret. Instead, a special rotating platform with a set of specialized equipment was mounted on the chassis. At the front of the platform, 2 turbojet engines with spray nozzles and hoses for water supply were installed. The engines were placed on a swiveling device that allowed them to be aimed in the vertical plane. A special framework with a mesh was provided in front of the engine air intakes. This unit was designed to shield the engines from debris and other objects that could damage them. Fuel tanks for the jet engines were placed at the rear of the platform. Behind the tanks, the operator's cabin was located. Water tanks were not provided, as they planned on drawing water from external reservoirs. During the construction of the equipment, the tank's hull and its components underwent some modifications. For example, the upper frontal part was reworked, while the control compartment was equipped with heat insulation, which made the work easier and improved the conditions inside the vehicle during fire suppression. After all the modifications and installation of new equipment, a heavy firefighting machine, weighing about 42 tons, without water and fuel reserves, was created. Due to the addition of specialized equipment, the overall length of the vehicle exceeded 10.6 meters, and the height was 4 meters. The Big Wind firefighting tank could move at a speed of no more than 5 kilometers per hour. 3 nozzles for spraying water were provided above the nozzle of each engine. 6 such units could deliver about 800 to 820 liters of water per second. When entering the engine's jet stream, the water was atomized into fine droplets, resulting in the formation of the gas-water mixture. The powerful flow of the mixture was supposed to literally cut off the oil fountain and prevent the ignition of new volumes of oil by isolating them from the burning liquid. The oil well fires in Kuwait had one interesting characteristic. The oil was coming out from under the ground under pressure, causing rather high fountains to burst out from the destroyed pipes. The gushing oil ignited at a height of about 2 to 3 meters. It was at this distance from the ground that the stream separated into individual droplets, mixed with air, and caught fire. The big wind was designed to cut the oil flow at a lower height, thereby preventing the ignition of new volumes of the valuable resource. Using powerful jets of gas-based mixture, the heavy firefighting machine was supposed to cut off the oxygen supply to the oil. After the fire was extinguished, the spray nozzles were supposed to spray water to cool down the metal pipelines and other objects near the emergency well. Following this, oil experts could arrive at the well to stop the oil flow and later restore the necessary equipment and put the facility back into operation. As the big wind firefighting tank couldn't carry a large amount of water, Hungarian and local specialists had to take measures to supply the equipment with water. A pit of sufficient volume was excavated at a safe distance from the emergency well. Its surface was lined with polymer materials. Before extinguishing the fire, this reservoir was filled with the required amount of water, and the firefighting machine had to draw water from it using hoses. Using external water reservoirs turned out to be more than justified. During the actual firefighting, the big wind machine sprayed up to 30 cubic meters of water per minute. The extinguishing process could last for several minutes. Moreover, after extinguishing the fire, the well needed to be watered for 20 to 30 minutes to cool it down. Thus, hundreds of tons of water could be used to suppress a single fire. Moreover, it should be noted that the crew of the big wind couldn't always immediately start the firefighting. Hungarian specialists often had to make several trips to the site of the fire. Before extinguishing the fire with a powerful jet of the gas-based mixture, the ash covering the emergency well was removed, as it hindered the suppression efforts. Despite all the difficulties associated with the preparation process and the actual firefighting, the big wind firefighting tank did an excellent job with the tasks it was assigned. In a total of 43 days of work, the joint efforts of the firefighters managed to extinguish 9 wells and prepare them for restoration and subsequent return to operation. After the fire was extinguished, oil continued to flow from the damaged well, but this fountain was no longer burning. After the work was done, which took a few months, the big wind machine was returned to Hungary, where they continued to use it. Following the fire suppression, the process of reconstruction and restoration of the oil wells began. It took a considerable amount of time, but thanks to the efforts of international companies and experts, a significant part of Kuwait's oil production infrastructure was restored. Despite the successful extinguishing of the fires, the environmental consequences of the oil well ignitions were felt in the region for a long time. Air, soil, and water pollution had serious consequences for the environment and people's health. Saddam Hussein was arrested and executed in 2006 by the Iraqi High Criminal Court for crimes against humanity related to his regime and actions during his rule. Well, that's all for today, friends. Be sure to hit that like button if you found this video interesting. Tell me what you learned in the comments too, and we'll see you next time.